discussing with a great panel today what type of positive impact and support PropTech will have on supporting owners, occupiers, managers, and users of commercial space. And we have a fantastic panel today. We've got Paul Walsh, who's the General Manager at CIM. We have Tom Proctor, who is the CEO of Network Control Group. And we've got Nathan Thoms, who's the Business Development Director at Spaceflow.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Walsh. I work as the General Manager for CIM, and CIM stands for Continuous Intelligent Monitoring. And at CIM, we always start with our why, and our vision is that why, and we want to be the world leader in building data analytics, making it easier to operate large, complex buildings. And that delivers environmental and economic benefits to customers, owners, and managers. And we believe that each of these groups has different needs when rising out of the ashes of this COVID-19 crisis we're all experiencing. But we believe building data analytics can help solve each of those needs. And I look forward to chatting to you today about that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas Proctor, CEO of the Network Control Group. We are a PropTech systems integrator, more focused on the physical in-building end of the market. So we have capacity to install fiber infrastructure into building as well as IoT devices. And then we provide a number of partner-based IoT technologies and data analytics platforms, which we then integrate with one another. That's us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nathan Thoms. Like Veronika said, I'm the Business Development Director for Spaceflow. We're a tenant engagement solution and operating currently in 14 different countries across multi-sectors. So it's going to be quite good to get some sort of insights and provide some analytics and what we're seeing within buildings that we're occupying.
Lovely, thank you, gentlemen. And I think before we start, for everyone on the line, everyone has been muted to allow for a better flow of the conversation and eliminate any background noise. But if you have questions at any point, you're welcome to put them in the Q&A box below, and we're going to weave them into the conversation as we go. Right, let's start. In that case, let's set the scene a little bit and talk a little bit about, in summary, about the top challenges and opportunities of what COVID-19 has done to your world. And I think if we can start with Tom, maybe.
Okay, so I think what we have seen are a lot of the from the challenges point of view, a lot of the grand plans of people are sort of paused for now, and that that has put a bit of a dent in our plans for things around productivity and data analysis. But what it has done is open up an opportunity to really cut a lot of more intangible things out of our offerings and focus on exactly what is relevant for right now. So we are at NCG, we're very much focused on the short-term solutions of getting everyone back to work, which is quite easy because it's quite a nice brief to get people back in. But yeah, grand plans and plans over the sort of 5 to 10 year term for us have been paused. So that's our kind of biggest challenge at the minute, getting through that.
And any opportunities on your side?
Yes, so the simplified solutions, the ones that are right, we need to solve a problem of, we need to prevent people entering a building that are unwell. So there's a body thermal camera for that, and you help them write infectious disease policy, and then you've got a solution to a problem. And those sort of things are selling very, very well at the minute, and they're really very useful. That's our big opportunity.
Interesting. I'm sure we're going to be able to dive into that a little bit more in a moment. How about you, Nathan, from your perspective? How does that look like at Spaceflow?
So I say the biggest challenges from our perspective is in terms of providing like an agile workplace. So we've seen quite strongly people are able to sort of function away from like a physical working condition with introductions of things like Zoom and just general meetings. So it's really a case of really just trying to find a way to really get engagement with the clients and sort of trying to retain them in the workforce. Yeah, I think that's sort of the biggest challenge as well as the opportunity, transferring it across to like a digital workplace. Yeah, I think it is very exciting, and it's making the industry evolve a lot quicker than maybe it was expecting. I think it's transitioning more from a nice to a need perspective, which yeah, I find quite cool.
Indeed, indeed. And how about you, Paul? How are things at CIM? How do you see that?
Yeah, I suppose our biggest challenge is because we optimize large, complex buildings. A lot of those buildings are suffering with low occupancy now because people have, on the back of COVID, have realized that they can work from home. It's albeit not ideal, but it does work. So the fact that people can do that, it's I suppose it's a realization that the future of buildings becoming fully occupied will be a challenge. And what I think we need to do in terms of a challenge for the industry is we probably need to rebuild an element of trust with people and trust in the built environmental space, that they can go back to sitting beside a colleague and not worry about, airborne diseases or airborne viruses. So I suppose from the if you like, from the trust perspective, the EHS element is vital, the environmental health and safety part, and I suppose the health part of it being key. I suppose how a building, large plant and equipment like a HVAC system can ensure that the air quality is being maintained, the temperature, the humidity, all those key parameters are being optimized to ensure any future virus spreads are minimized, or certainly help against the spread of that. And then from the environmental perspective, just to make sure that buildings do dynamically respond to the occupancy. So in other words, when buildings are low occupancy, that the energy consumption is directly correlated to that, and according as the building begins to populate again, that the energy consumption will increase. So I suppose that from an environmental perspective, we feel that it's a key challenge. And I suppose the opportunities as we see it is, a lot of our clients are beginning to realize that the digitization of buildings now is becoming paramount, and to allow it to dynamically respond to that occupancy variation. And I suppose maybe what COVID has done for our sector, or for the prop tech sector, is maybe has accelerated that program for digitization. And when that happens, then a good building data analytics solution can be layered in on top of that, and it will allow for that dynamic control of a building from an environmental perspective, but also from a health and well-being perspective.
That's interesting, yes. And I think we have very, very similar challenges and opportunities across the industry, regardless of the type of products or the type of prop tech we are in. I'm interested to learn from you, what do you hear from clients or prospects in your businesses? And I think, Tom, in your case, you have clients who haven't really gone into lockdown, and I'll be interested to hear from you. Let's start with you then.
Building on what Paul said actually about trust and health, it's the biggest worry for these guys about people returning to work, and the ones that are in. There's a massive concern over sort of insurance and legal issues, and then nervousness of employees traveling, and then what happens when they do get to the office. We've all got a massive opportunity within PropTech around air quality, around flexible occupancy. All of that piece is a big opportunity for all of us. But then there's a real, it's all about the trust building. If you can improve and prove that your air quality is decent, you can maybe get another 5 or 10% of people within that company happy to go back into work, right? And every technology that you can do that adds another 5 or 10% on top of that, you're starting to get towards an occupancy rate that is making the building as an office make sense again. That's kind of where we see the opportunity there. And the feedback is, the feedback is a general nervousness of, is there going to be a second wave? What can we do at the office to not only protect our employees, but protect the building owners and protect the employers from claims, from sickness, from having employees no longer wanting to come to these large offices. There's a big nervousness out there, and luckily I think everyone on this call has a way of getting confidence back in, but it really is, there is some serious worry out there that what happens when you send people in. And it's not really about the office, actually. There's a lot about the travel to the office. That's where a big bit of the fear is. And we can make an office, I think, the most healthy place someone can go during that time. I think that's the big worry. So I think as building owners and then as employers, they need to start worrying about how to protect people on their way in. And that might mean a more diffused real estate that heads out of town, that goes to regional offices, that goes to a flexible model. That might be the solution to all of this.
That's right, because it's, I'm sure we have audience from all over the world on this call today, but that is definitely a big challenge in big cities where people commute on public transport instead of walking or commuting by car. Interesting. How about you, Paul? What is the feedback you are hearing?
I suppose a lot of our clients are still on the returning to work phase. We haven't got buildings back up to full occupancy yet, but there is definitely, I suppose, a requirement now from anyone returning back to work that the building owner and the building manager is prioritizing their health and well-being over everything else. And they need to see demonstrable evidence of that. So in order, again, to rebuild this trust or to rebuild their confidence in being in the workspace, and for their colleagues to see the repopulation of the building. So what we're working with clients on is developing dashboards from the building management system that shows, for example, the air quality metrics or the CO2 level metrics in the building, or the temperature and the RH, all those blended BMS, or building management system, key performance indicators that will give the building occupants a level of confidence that the HVAC system has been augmented to ensure or protect their health and well-being. So we're seeing a higher requirement for that. And when we do that with our clients, we're seeing buildings being populated more quicker, or more quickly, if that's a word, sorry. And that's kind of the feedback we're seeing at our side.
Interesting. And Nathan, what about space flow? What are you hearing from your clients and prospects?
So in terms of bringing occupiers back to the building, like these guys have touched on, it's all about safety and security. So in terms of the air quality, in terms of being able to manage the actual amenities and the areas within the building, safely removing or destroying important items such as PPE, or just general areas, just ensuring there's like a good cleaning process. So if there's any like meeting rooms or anything booked, then you need to be able to sort of manage that and monitor it, so the relevant cleaning could be taken care of straight away. In terms of what clients are doing sort of remotely, so we've got some really sort of interesting insights from our clients in what they're looking to deliver. So we've seen a lot of them are doing a lot of sort of wellness programs, a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, a lot of fitness. They're just trying to keep their tenants occupied, trying to keep them busy. But when it actually comes back into place, they're looking into a lot of different avenues of PropTech, removing physical touch points. So that could be different things like access control systems. They're looking at a lot into air quality. They understand that social distancing isn't enough. They need to be able to manage what is actually going on to keep people safe in the workspace. Like Tom touched, the biggest challenge is probably going to be the actual commute, which a lot of people don't feel safe in. But I think this sort of time has really sort of given people a good opportunity to sort of evaluate and create a strategy. And they are transitioning and making plans to future-proof their business, which is very good from a PropTech perspective.
And just to, I think, before we move on, I think this is the real coming of the reset air standards, the well standards, the all of that piece is going to come massively to the fore now. It's been bubbling away in the background for a while, but those standards, those certifications of air quality and health are just, that's what everyone needs to be developing their solutions towards, those standards now.
And so just to touch on that once more, Veronika, sorry. So one thing we're also speaking to sort of our clients as well, which it's quite insightful because they're looking to the future. So what they're doing is they're doing virtual training, virtual program, like a program to sort of look how they can do staggered entrance into the building, just so people are aware of what to do when the lockdown is lifted. I think the sooner people can do that, the better it will be.
Indeed. And I think on the hygiene, and we have some questions coming in, and one of them is actually quite relevant to this part of the conversation. And someone has asked if you think that hygiene will become part of the well-being agenda, possibly unpicking and stripping back exposed services product. I don't know, maybe we can start or continue with Nathan on that thought.
Yeah, no, 100%. Hygiene is going to be very much into the wellness. I mean, so we speak to a lot of sort of co-working spaces and commercial occupiers, and it's going to the extent of they're looking at operating sanitizing systems both within the toilets and then without the toilets as soon as they're looking to leave, just to reduce any chance of spread. So this will bring back to the safety, making people feel safe going back into the working environment, and hygiene is definitely a very important factor in that.
Indeed. Paul, any news from you?
I suppose we don't have any direct contact with hygiene or cleaning programming, but what we do see is a lot of the facility managers putting that front and center now. So as a result, when we try and talk to them about building energy optimization, it tends to be lower down their priority list, because obviously keeping everyone safe is the number one priority. But I suppose what we have seen, I suppose, is again back to the desire for the facility manager or the building owner to try and allow a building data analytics platform to optimize the way a building is run for them, and not for the facility management team to have to worry about that, so that they can then focus on the hygiene and cleanliness programming you mentioned.
Indeed. And in terms of your clients or prospects who are looking for new office space, how do you think that is changing or will change if they're starting from scratch? And what role does Proctor play in that search and that process? And I guess we can go to Tom maybe.
I think for us, I think that there's a bit of a mantra around simple, smaller and healthier. That's quite simple. But actually, I think that large corporate office is more so than ever going to look like a showroom for the company as a whole. So it's going to have to reflect the sort of values of the business. So it's going to have to be sustainable. It's going to have to be energy efficient. It's going to have to do all of those things, which is a great opportunity for those prop techs. And it's going to have to be, there's going to have to be technology available there that is not available in the home. I think that's quite important. So things like augmented reality suites, things like 3D printing, particularly as supply chains shrink and become more localized. All of those things are going to be built into the office of the future, I think. But there needs to be something better than just a computer on a desk to get people to come back and to make them relevant again. And I think all those things there, there's opportunities for the AV people, there's opportunities for the connectivity people, there's opportunities for the sustainability people. All of those things come together to create sort of, it's a focus on technology over aesthetics now, and particularly when you come back to the hygiene point, all these beautiful, lovely surfaces and all sorts of crazy materials, all that stuff I think is going to be stripped back and replaced with technology you can't get in the home to make them relevant. That's what we see, I think.
Indeed. And from the energy perspective, Paul, what would that look like if a client is seeking new space?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. We saw a report done by Savills last year that showed that the number one attribute for the Gen Z worker in their building was the environmental efficiency of it. So in terms of attracting or retaining that demographic to the building, the environmental footprint of the building is now the most important thing. Well, it was pre-COVID, obviously. So that has allowed for a speed up in the deployment of energy efficiency technologies and of data analytics platforms, which is great because the prop tech sector has plenty of those type of solutions, and we can help certainly reduce the CO2 emissions from the built environment, and that's kind of why we exist. Just, I suppose, with the other element, and to Tom's point there around the people element, there is definitely a realization that the working from home thing works, but I don't think, because people are, deep down social animals, there is a desire for people to work in a common space with people, and there is synergies that are gained from that. So I think there is definitely still a future for an office environment, for a collaborative work environment. It's just getting back to that full occupancy mode, or that full levels of occupancy we had prior to COVID will be, I suppose, a slow ramp up. But I suppose in terms of anyone requesting new office space, we do see the sustainability element and the energy efficiency of the building being to the fore.
I wanted to turn to Nathan with the same question and a view.
I think you need to sort of think of new ways to entice people to really sort of want to come back into the workspace. I completely agree. Me specifically, I love the social element of going into a workspace, being able to see people, being able to engage. I think that what needs to be done is really, in order to really understand what tenants want when going into the workspace, you really need to be able to sort of get cleaner, more accurate data. You need to sort of be able to find out what the tenant wants within a building, what works for them. You need to just make sure everything is accessible. And then what's very key as well is the collaboration and communication that goes from the property owner to the property manager, community manager, directly to the occupier. It needs to be a completely transparent process. And yeah, these are the elements that I think will help make people want to make better decisions when looking at office space.
That's right. And also I think that it's, we're going to be a bit more careful going forward, or clients are going to be more careful choosing office space for the purpose that the office should serve, that it will not be necessarily a place full of desks and screens, but it will be a destination for employees for a particular range of purposes. And I think that will then define the safety, the well-being and the sustainability points a little bit better overall, but I think that's still quite a process. And if we're looking at how Proctor can support both owners and occupiers and the managers of commercial spaces, what do you think will be the financial or the non-financial impact of PropTech? And I guess, Paul, I'm interested to hear from you first on that.
I suppose financially right now there's an opportunity for building owners and building managers to save money on their operational costs, because if the building is able to dynamically respond to occupancy, it should be saving money on energy consumption, and I suppose on maintenance regimes, on call outs, on contractor performance or contractor management. That should all be, I suppose, a financial gain right now, and there is an opportunity for buildings to maintain that ability to manage the asset dynamically. Again, back to the digitization of the asset. If we can get the data, if we can get the building to its peak performance and try and keep it there according as it repopulates, that's a fantastic opportunity, and it's an opportunity for building owners and managers to save money in the medium to long term. And I think your second question was around the non-financial benefits. So I see it's, I suppose, altruistically, it's almost like when a building saves energy, there will be reduced CO2 emissions, which helps, as I say, the green credentials of that asset. It also will probably be, because I suppose the HVAC system is now actively monitoring those key parameters that we keep touching on around the air quality and the temperature and the relative humidity in the building. There is an opportunity, I suppose, for employee productivity improvement in that when all those key metrics are blended together, you will create an optimal work space for people to continue to be productive right throughout the business day. And that's a key, I suppose, non-financial opportunity for building managers and also for employees. And I suppose, again, that could be, according as we come out of the ashes of COVID, that's a fantastic new way to run your asset. And it's a great opportunity for us now, when we restart these buildings, to get those two things up and running, quite easily, really.
Indeed. And Nathan, what does that look like from your perspective?
So we have a user case with a deal which we actually closed in this lockdown period, and one of the reasons why the clients sort of choose to take us is because they had to drastically reduce their headcount, but they were able to continue to operate on a certain level through our platform. So that was one of the sort of key decisions they looked to make. I think from a non-financial perspective, what you also need to sort of look at is the bigger picture outside of the building, in terms of being able to support the local community, bring the smaller businesses back together, being able to sort of connect. And I think if we can do that, again, that will help just to sort of improve the economy. What we do with our platform is we connect a lot of small businesses and provide them with a vendor profile on the platform, so they can offer their services or their or offer perks or any of their solutions to the tenants, which I think is going to be a great great tool to sort of allow them to collaborate.
Yeah, as I said before, it might happen much quicker than we ever before anticipated because of the necessity of the situation currently. So that'll be interesting to see how fast that will progress. Another question from the audience around occupation densities, which I think is quite interesting. So the person's asking, and sorry, I can't see your names. The occupation densities are going to drop and agile working might reverse. People will need space and will not share keyboards anymore, which I think is true, we all agree. This might be a problem for co-working models. Has any of you got views on that?
Yes, I think it will be a problem for co-working model, but I also think it's a problem for the fully agile environment. You know, if you've not got your cleaning regime very strict, you know, 2-3 times a day per workstation, and you're asking people the second they leave the desk and they come back and share equipment and things like that, then that's a serious problem. And that was a huge part of all the refits and all of the retrofit projects we've been involved in recently have all been about agile working and smart lockers and storage and sharing everything. You know, that's a problem in this environment, unless you get your cleaning down. You know, data driven, don't do it by sensors based on occupancy, all of that sort of thing can support it massively. But I think that co-working model has spread a lot further than probably we all give it credit for sometimes into old organizations and into the fully flexible environment. So yeah, I think it's a good point, and it could be quite a serious problem. Not just people moving between each other, but people sharing desks is an issue. Yeah.
Yes. And I think following from that is another interesting question. And someone's asking, if the panel had to choose one thing that COVID-19 will have changed forever, what would that be?
I suppose, again, with my sustainability or my CO2 reduction hat on me, I think it's what it's done is it's realized, or people have realized, how powerless they are in terms of any of these pandemics or this global tidal wave or tsunami hitting us, right? And I think what we've learned from this, certainly what I've learned from it, is that our readiness for a climate change pandemic or a climate change upheaval is limited. And I think what it has taught me, and it's certainly the team in CIM, is that we need to be doing more and doing it quicker to try and, you know, everyone knows we have that 10-year window to try and prevent this 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature rise. And I think maybe it will expedite that. And if anything positive comes from COVID-19, it will be a realization that we have to act now, we have to act really quickly, and we have the tech to act quickly. We just need the willpower to do it. So that would be my key takeaway.
Excellent, I like that. How about you, Tom?
For me, it's probably, I won't just repeat what Paul said. I think that is the main one. I think it's the impact we don't quite see yet, and that is great. But I think on a more logistics point of view, I think just-in-time delivery and sort of global supply chains that rely on 40 countries to manufacture one product, I mean, that's got to be rethought. That is a recipe for driving up carbon emissions of all the transport, back to Paul's point, but also just leaving us all very open and very exposed. You know, even in the US now, they're beginning to talk of food shortages and supply chain, issues, and that's devastating stuff. We can't have that anymore. So I think there's definitely a role for localized manufacturing of the technology products we've got, and that will be through, it'll still be San Francisco, it'll still be Silicon Valley that design all the things, but why can 3D printers here not develop the products for the British market? That's I think is the end of just-in-time supply chains for me.
That's a good point. And how about you, Nathan? One thing.
I mean, both of those are great answers. From our personal perspective, I think what it's really shown is how vulnerable people are and how vulnerable businesses are. So one of the key points that we're seeing is just, essentially just connection and communication among your peers, among other individuals. Health and wellness and your mental health is such an important topic. So I think it's really helping people really analyze both their workforce as well as just the general public. So for me, communication is a key driver through this.
Excellent, thank you. And I think we've got a couple of questions around how the panel stay up to date with COVID-19 updates and information. I know we mentioned a couple of sources in the conversation, but that question comes up slightly. So how do you all stay up to date? And I guess all of the forecasts and prognoses are just that, and we have to make our own decisions of how we see them, how we read them. But how do you stay up to date? And we can maybe start with Tom.
Well, there's a combination for me. I think I made a mistake at the start of the crisis of leaving Bloomberg on in the background behind my screen, which, when everything is in the red, it's a fairly terrifying prospect. So I've silenced that, and now sort of reading it's Harvard Business School, it's Oxford University, it's those centres, it's the university centres where you get the most measured information from, and it requires engagement with it. You've got to read it. It's not a headline, right? It's proper studies giving you real information that takes a while to consume, but it is worth it every single time. So I would say that the big universities that are involved in the fight against this are the best sources of information, and each one of those universities has people in real estate that they can then talk to the medical people, and it does give you that overall picture. So for me, it's the universities where I get my information from at the minute.
Very good. And how about you, Nathan?
So for me, yeah, I mean, same, you have Bloomberg on in the background. In terms of resources for different locations, because we are multi-countries, like we're across the globe. There's actually a PropTech platform called Infobo that we use that gives a lot of insights to COVID across different sectors, different locations, which is really valuable to our community management team, so they can introduce them to their audience. I mean, we have one of our clients, actually, they acquired a COVID specialist to support their staff in terms of any sort of like financial requirements or any grants or schemes that could help to support them. I mean, yeah, I do cheekily sometimes look at some of the Q&As and that they put in there. But yeah, I mean, it's really just trying to scour the market, find opinions of like-minded professionals within the industry. I don't spend all my time on it, but if I ever have a question, I always know there's someone that can provide me with an answer.
And I guess on panels like this one is also quite useful to listen to or to read the script to get the latest opinion. How about you, Paul? What is your go-to source?
Yeah, we tend to lean quite heavily on the International Energy Agency. They have very good weekly or certainly bi-weekly updates on how I suppose buildings can rise up out of the COVID-19 and how they can ramp up as efficiently as possible, and what governments need to do around incentivizing building owners to make sure that happens. And then even moving away from the energy efficiency side, how they can promote green investments in buildings and move away from investing in buildings that have a very poor energy efficiency rating, and even direct the investment of additional capital into highly efficient buildings. So if there's any greenfield sites that are starting and saying later this year, the International Energy Agency is trying to instruct governments how best to incentivize that behavioural change around, getting people to invest in green property. And we use that quite frequently as a go-to guide to help, I suppose, change the narrative with our customers and help flavour the discussions we have with them.
Is the property industry tightening its belt, always open to spending money on innovation so it can navigate COVID-19 with as little disruption as possible? So Paul, if you want to carry on that thought, I think that would make more sense.
Yeah, it's a really good point. There is often a need for a financial stimulus to get these kind of initiatives going, and oftentimes it can be a very light touch by the government in that it can be just a contribution or a rebate based on the energy they saved. But I do think that there's now appetite to spend money on, and I keep referring to it, and I think the boys touched on it earlier too, is around digitizing the asset and just allowing platforms and data analytics solutions to do to identify opportunities for improvement in existing plant and equipment. So you're not asking the building owner necessarily to invest a huge amount of capital in upgrading his or her building. You're basically trying to get them to optimize what they have in their plant room right now. And I suppose the push they would need for that is either a financial stimulus, which is a rebate or a payment they would get if they deliver some energy savings, or alternatively, what's worked quite well. A lot of our clients are Australian based. They have an energy rating system out there called NEBRS, which is National Association of Building Energy Rating Scheme, and it's almost obligatory on some of the larger assets for the buildings to have a good NEBRS rating. And at the UK, the BVP are trying to bring that into the UK, which is quite good, and that will force a lot of building owners to become more energy efficient. So I suppose it's the carrot and stick approach. But first, I suppose there is an opportunity there to do stuff really quickly and really cost effectively.
Indeed. And any news from you, Nathan or Tom, on that, if the property industry is tightening its belt or will spend more on innovation?
We are seeing a transition from nice to need. So people are aware that they do need to do more. They're a lot more open to conversations. We find the residential market more specifically are looking to sort of spend money quicker because tenants are obviously in lockdown. It's an easier environment to do that.
I also guess that innovation doesn't have to be expensive. It's a redirection quite often of assets and of spend rather than heavy bills. But again, that's always the misconception. Okay. There's an interesting one, and I think, Paul, you might be interested in that one. How do we make sure we're on the side of our environmental improvements? For example, reducing the use of harmful chemicals, plastics, is not lost in light of COVID-19.
While those initiatives are very important and very close to my heart, I suppose the number one priority is around people's well-being and safety. So I would say what it has worked quite well for all of our clients is around developing an energy awareness program on the site or in the building, and including those sustainability metrics in the initiatives that the energy team or the sustainability team are doing. Certainly with the data we get from the building management system, we can quite easily represent the energy intensity or the CO2 emissions from the building. And then we can, I suppose, capture as well how they're doing around, waste reduction programs or any kind of initiatives they have like that once that data is available to us. And I suppose what we do see a lot of our clients having is the, BREEAM and LEED and WELL and all those building certifications around how sustainable the asset is. And a significant portion of that certification is energy, but there's also a lot of it in there around, water management, around sustainability programs, around innovation. So I would see, I suppose that as being the driver in that if a building wants to maintain the LEED Gold or LEED Platinum, whatever certification the level they have, they're going to have to maintain those sustainability programs and those plastic reduction programs as well.
Indeed. And there's a follow-up question to what you were saying before, Paul. Do you think that flexibility of use might be embedded in projects to permit responsiveness to future threats?
Any of the large buildings that are being built now or that are planned for building are being a significant energy improvements directives are being dictated by the planning authorities to say, listen, you can no longer put up an inefficient asset. You've got to adhere to specific and are quite stringent actually. The planning regulations around how efficient the building needs to be. It typically needs to have on-site generation like a solar thermal or a solar PV. The glazing has to be very high standards. The air tightness has to be quite high. So I think if the question is relating to future projects and is energy efficiency being baked into those, I would certainly say yes. I think our challenge is on the existing stock and on the older stuff that has been built, and it's up since the 70s and the early 80s, that typically is running very inefficiently, and to upgrade the fabric is a very expensive job. So I would say yes, there's definitely being a shift in how new buildings are being specified and new buildings are being maintained and managed. I think it's the older stock will be our challenge. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, any other views from Tom or Nathan?
I think just picking up on Paul's final point about existing stock and the importance of being able to retrofit things and the lack of money to redesign big spaces. Everyone on this call that owns a prop tech business or runs one is trying to sell the solution needs to make sure that they are doing something that is tangible, that can be done now, can be done simply, and can be done for not that much cost and solves a problem quickly. I think those are the only, for the next 6 to 12 months, those are the only things that are going to be useful to the landlords on the call. It's got to be simple, it's got to be easy to understand, it's got to be low cost, and it's got to have a big impact. Right? That's it. The intangible, more esoteric stuff that's been out for the last few years, they need to have a rethink, decide where they need to be.
That's a great point, Tom.
Yeah. Next, quite an interesting question. How do you think the office as a physical location can ensure that it continues to involve and engage those that work remotely in a collaborative work? And I think, Nathan, that's a good one for you.
Yeah, so we've seen it sort of currently. So through our app. So there's a lot of organisations of different classes. They're always kept up to date with what's actually going on in the physical building. So if there's any updates, they can see it in real time. It's all about engaging, providing the relevant content, giving them key information that they see as valuable, no matter where they work, whether it's remotely or in the office. I think there have been, in this current environment, there have been a lot of tenant experience solutions that have delivered a very good standard of product for the remote work base. So it's very simple for them to sort of transition when there's going to be a mix. I think, like we've touched before, I think the bigger problem is a lot of businesses are seeing that they are still as productive with a reduced workforce in a physical environment. So in terms of the cost, in terms of how much space people need to lease, I think that would be the bigger problem.
That's a very good point, yeah.
I think at risk of repeating myself, the office now needs to offer something that home just can't. And I'm not one of these people that think that work from home is the experiment. It's a great success because the economy is falling through the floor in certain areas, but there's other reasons for that. And this enforced thing is probably not the way to go. But an office needs to have technology in it that offers so much more you can get at home. So we're again back to augmented reality, back to 3D printing, back to high bandwidth solutions. All of those things, and robotics and AI, all those things can be done inside the office that can't be done at home. And that's the only real point going forward in the office, is as a technological hub, I think. And I think that's where the opportunity for the prop tech people on this call comes from.
Indeed.
Sorry, Weronika, just a point I'd follow up there on what Nathan mentioned around the engagement. We see that as being vital as well. Like, this COVID crisis has now put the occupier front and center in the minds of the management team and of the owners, that they now have the ability to dictate what criteria needs to be met before they come back to work. So up to now, the tenant might have felt, or the occupier might have felt somehow powerless or unable to make any changes or any directional change to how the building was run. But now I suppose they have the ability to, through an engagement program, to ensure that they can stipulate to the building owner or building manager, we're no longer happy to work in an office that has a very poor energy rating or that is not complying with COVID recommendations on your HVAC system. And that suddenly changes the narrative very quickly, and it forces the building owners and the building managers to respond rapidly to that. So the power now has, in our minds, has shifted 100% to the tenants, and to the level of engagement that they now have is immense.
I totally agree with that. And we see the same at CBRE, that the tenant has, the negotiating position of the tenant has shifted dramatically from being very landlord controlled to tenant controlled. Absolutely.
Essentially, you need to make them want to come to work or come to the office space rather than work remotely. Exactly. So, yeah, what Tom said earlier, that pretty much touched on everything.
Indeed. There's a challenging question I'm gonna put to you now. Are we likely to see a resistance to opening offices up whilst the industry is unable to guarantee a COVID-free space? What can stop a possible stagnation of a decision? And this is somehow linked to a question we had before on the list around staggering repopulating offices. But I think this is quite a challenging one. And I think, Paul, can we start with you on that one?
I suppose the start of the question was, are we going to see a stagnation in?
I want to see a resistance to opening offices.
Yes, yeah, absolutely yes is the answer in my opinion. Until we can rebuild that element of trust with people, that when they do return to work, that they're going to be safe and that they can participate in an office environment, that other people are coughing and sneezing beside them and they're going to be not getting any kind of or the building is going to be trying to ensure that they don't get any kind of risk from that, then absolutely yes. Do we have to wait until a vaccine is widely distributed? I don't believe so. Certainly not to anyone that's not in that vulnerable category. But I do think there is an element, I think we started the start of the webinar with this point, that there's an element of trust there we've got to rebuild with people who occupy these buildings. So I think it's baby steps initially, and we do need to demonstrate to them that we have made changes at the building level to try and ensure their safety. So I don't see buildings being occupied fully tomorrow morning, but I do see it happening probably according as the lockdown is lifted. People will start returning to work.
Indeed. I know Tom and Nathan, you have mentioned points on that before, but if you want to chip in before we move on to the next question, feel free.
Nathan, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, simple answer is yes. You need to, obviously, the circumstances for each individual is different. Like you need to take in consideration in terms of your workforce. Some people might live with high risk family members, and under no circumstance would they want to put any challenge or put themselves in any potential danger. Yeah, I think it's just the answer is yes. You just need to do preparation. Like I said, you need to start planning now. Virtual training, both with the property manager for their internal workforce, for the vendors, for the deliverers, providing safe and secure working environment, and then also just for the tenants, they need to start training their occupiers in terms of the staggered process, who's going to be coming in where, the locations where they're able to operate, and yeah, it's just going to be a long sort of journey, but yeah, it's just going to take a bit of time.
No, I think there's going to be resistance, but there are steps that people can do right now. So there's technology like the air quality piece we've talked about, as long as you can get it certified against something. There are body thermal cameras you can put in so you can detect ill people as they come into the building. You know, those all tick boxes. There's targeted cleaning. There's all of those aspects to everything that we can do. You then need to communicate that to people as they come back to increase that confidence. And you need to keep those systems running throughout the entire time they're in the building. And that's the new sort of way of working, right? But it's good for the prop tech world that the same solutions that give confidence back to employees, to tenants to come back to the building, are also the same systems that keep the insurers and the lawyers happy later down the line. You know, if you've got high quality body thermal detection in the lobby and you're isolating people through an infectious disease policy and doing it properly, and then asking them to go home and to isolate, you know, that not only keeps your employees safe, but it also helps bring down the costs of legal claims and insurance later on. So there's building trust with tenants is just the same as building trust back up with your insurers and legal teams, in my opinion. That's what we're seeing now. So those technologies that have a double edge to them are the ones that are selling, particularly with us now.
Interesting. Considering we have 8 minutes left on the panel, if I could ask each of you to talk and maybe summarize the short-term and the long-term opportunities or predictions that you have, and how you think PropTech is crucial in meeting those or supporting those. And I guess if we can start with Paul for final remarks.
I suppose just in summary, like definitely COVID-19 has scared people. So we need to rebuild trust we had with people a couple of months ago about sharing office space with others. And we feel that, you know, the best way or the best conduit to do that is through a good building data analytics platform that can help ingest all those data streams that Tom mentioned there on the thermal imaging cameras, the occupancy levels, the building management system, and energy consumption or energy management system, and blend those all into meaningful, easy to understand metrics that people can understand. And that will improve the level of confidence that people have on returning to work. And I think that's the key. That's the key takeaway from me, and that's what we are promoting with our client base.
Lovely. And Nathan?
Short term, I'd say just providing the safety and security measures enabled to sort of help people go back to normal process or day-to-day working lives. Long term, I think the key driver is collaboration, whether that's between the property owner, whether it's between the community manager, whether it's directly to the occupiers, or whether it's in between, if it's with the PropTech community in general, whether there needs to be a communication piece and able to get the engagement, whether there's the sensors and the heat mapping so you can determine who's ill. I think, yeah, it just all needs to be in one way an end-to-end solution to ensure that this gets resolved as quickly as possible.
That's right. And Tom?
So I'll just break it down quite simply. I think right now, short term, safe reoccupation is the only thing that people care about. I mean, the Wellcome Trust put it to us very well last week. We're not buying anything that doesn't involve getting people safely back into our buildings. That's it for them. And then long term, I think the sustainability and reduction in cost is key. And that kind of leads on to the simple, smaller, healthier office. I think that's where we're going to end up, more spread out. So a landlord that can pivot really nicely to a more geographical diverse portfolio is going to be doing very well, I think. And perhaps in time, there'll be an offset in the raising of rents outside of the central London area to compensate for the slight decrease that we're going to see in London. I think that's where we're going to end up.
That is a really interesting point that you're making. And since we have more time, I've got one more question around the destination workplace, because we have touched on this before a number of times throughout the conversation. If you were to fast forward 5, 7, 10 years, in addition to the rent changes, and I think I personally agree with that prediction, what do you think, or what would you want the workplace to look like, and how do you think PropTech, including the PropTech your business is providing, will impact that? And maybe again, in my usual order, if we can start with Paul on that, your future predictions.
So I do see a higher element of people working from home. I don't see it being all 40 hours a week, but I do certainly see a higher percentage of it. I would like to think that buildings will become more sustainable over time, and that building managers and building owners will realize the potential value they have, or the potential opportunity to save costs and save energy they have right now. All the buildings we deal with are gathering terabytes of data. It's just difficult to access them, and then and then they're in individual silos. So a solution that will blend all those into one, and not necessarily ours. It would be great if it was ours, but there's plenty of good building data analytics solutions out there that can provide buildings with a solution in that 5 to 7 year window that would allow them to have a very sustainable and very efficient asset in 7 years' time for minimal capital investment. So I would love to think that, you know, this COVID crisis would expedite that transition to a sustainable built environment.
Excellent, that sounds great. How about you, Nathan?
To be honest, I pretty much agree with Paul. I think it's going to transition a lot to a virtual workplace. Essentially, people just need to be able to operate to a certain standard, wherever they feel comfortable in a working environment. Sustainability is going to be the big push. Yeah, pretty much what Paul said, unfortunately.
Excellent. I think we're all on the same page here. Anything else to add from you, Tom?
Yes, I think the point you made a while back in the call, you almost touched on the office being there almost for a project. It's for a reason, right? So we've got a space spun up for 6 months because this team is developing this this widget, this piece of software, this app, and how is that office designed to achieve that one goal? I think that particularly for the big corporates, that is something that makes sense, because after that 6 months is up, you can then get people working from home. You can then get people deciding what the next project is, and then you can spin up the next space to do the next big project. And you can then attach real estate quite easily then to the outcome of an individual project, which then releases more budget for it, and then you can do design, and then you can add technology to it. And that's really where the landlord and the prop tech need to get together. And the way that landlords can start offsetting some of the lost rents is by providing more services on top of the layer, which is kind of what you guys do quite well. So that's kind of how we see it, more project-based working, but the real estate reflecting that, rather than they're just being desks and sometimes we use them.
I agree with that.
Sorry, just one thing, Veronika. One thing I do see will happen as well, like you just touched on the desks. I think in terms of the space, it will be a lot more in terms of meeting rooms, things that actually people can use rather than a physical workplace. I think that will be a key change as well.
Yeah.
I think so too. And I think it'll be much easier to determine the return on investment from the tenant's perspective. How, and this could be for short-term projects, like you mentioned, Tom, 6 months, or it could be a long-term purpose of an office. So, we are setting up a client-facing, beautiful headquarters in central London.
Yep.
And the purpose of it is to meet clients and do workshops and internal brainstormings. Thank you very much for your time. I hope the audience found the conversation useful. We're going to be posting the questions and answers, I understand, together with the video later this week. So stay tuned for that. Thank you to everyone.